Yes.
Roll call of the members of the zoning subcommittee. Councillor Keefe?
Here.
Here. Councillor McKenna?
Here.
Here. Councillor Powers is absent. Councillor Rotondo is absent. Councillor Zambudo?
Here.
Here. And Chairman Chairman Haas?
Yeah.
Here. A quorum is present.
All right. We'd like to take up CZ 1601. It's an ordinance further amending the zoning in ordinance of the City of Revere relative to the definition of kennels. Excuse me? Oh, yeah, Charlie Patch is also here, and Arthur Guanasso is also here, and Joanne McKenna is also here. I got... We got fourth, or three. Five, yeah. We got a quorum, yeah.
Six.
Yeah.
There's six. Six.
You have a quorum. There's four. 4 out of 6.
Zoning has six.
Yeah,
Oh, there's only 4 on the committee?
No, there's...
six in the committee.
And how many people are here?
4.
Right now, there's only 4.
Yeah, yeah.
We have Mr. Guanasso here.
I'm talking about on the zoning subcommittee.
They just took the roll call.
Right.
6.
We're waiting on George Rotondo.
Rotondo and Powers is absent. Are absent.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. No problem, Charlie. Can you bring us up to date as far as what the site plan review was?
Time out. As
Yes,
a
sir.
committee member, I'd like to speak since I spent my valuable time helping to write this thing. We're going to talk about the history of it and how it came to where it's going to, and what I'm going to suggest happens now. So, to give a little brief history, I was asked to lend my expertise to help solve a problem in the city. I helped draft this new dog ordinance, and I put this last section, which is eventually going to be struck, Section 3, to signify the difference between what a legal breeder, a legal personal kennel is, and a illegal breeding such as is happening and what the major problem is in the city. Unfortunately, some people seem to think that this was done in a personal way and that it would benefit me, as if, and I want to stop here, and I just want to say that what transpired after that was what I considered an unprecedented lack of decorum, and I'd say egregious lack of decorum on this council. I was personally attacked as if I had done this for myself. First of all, I can't vote on this ordinance because I am a hobby breeder and a dog show enthusiast. So that leaves us with 10 councilors. And if anybody on this council is naive to think that Tony Zambudo can get 8 votes out of this city council and would ever have an opportunity to get a special permit for himself is smoking, not medical marijuana, but the other marijuana. So, you know, I only do what's right for the city on the city council, okay? I only do what's right. I only do what's in the best interest of the city. And I take offense when I'm personally attacked, and with either innuendo or whatever way you want to call it, but I was actually called out with someone who has barking dogs on his street, on High Street. Disgraceful, but we won't go down any further down that road. The bottom line is, with this, we're bringing our ordinance now in line with the state law. The only thing we will be eliminating is any chance that anybody would think that this was in any way intended for me. And again, I take great offense that that was insinuated, and I'll just say insinuated, but it was a little more than that. anyways, so much for that nonsense. And what my proposal is now to just simply leave the first two sections in and eliminate Section 3. We probably could have just left Section 3, but eliminated the special permit, we're eliminating 2 and 3? I apologize.
Yep.
Oh, okay, that was a section, okay. So it's Section 2 and 3 we'll be eliminating. We probably could have left it, instead of saying special permit, put no, not allowed, but that's redundant because this just, by eliminating 2 and 3, we leave it exactly the way the state law is written. However, we still now will have the ability, since we've done this, we'll now have the ability to go after under the 40U and have some teeth in our enforcement of these illegal dog breeders in the city. So that's what this is all about. That's what it was intended for in the first place. I am disappointed that some of my colleagues, especially the chairman, went off in a different direction and accused me of trying to do something personal here. And I take great offense to that. So I'm happy that I helped lend my expertise to this so that the city benefits. And as they say, no good deed goes unpunished. Obviously, I'm recusing myself from voting as I have to.
I don't think he can
and
speak either.
that's where it stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zambudo. Can the clerk just read the planning board's recommendation to the city council?
Dear members, pursuant to Section 17.56.050 of the revised Revere zoning ordinance, the planning board at a regular meeting held on March 8th, 2016, subsequent to a public hearing held on February 23rd, 2016, voted to favorably recommend the adoption of Section 1, Title 17, Chapter 17.08 to create the following new definition for a kennel. Kennel means a pack or collection of dogs on a single premise, including a commercial boarding or training kennel, commercial breeder kennel, domestic charitable corporation kennel, personal kennel, or veterinary kennel as defined by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 140, Sections 136A to 137A, as amended by Chapter 193 of the Legislative Acts of 2012, an act further regulating animal control. The board does not favorably recommend the adoption of Section 2 and Section 3, which would allow a kennel within the RB district by special permit.
Now, on the issue, what they're saying is they want to make Section 1 conform to the state issue, and they eliminate Sections 2 and 3. Anyone would like to speak on it? You spoke well. No further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the planning board's recommendation?
Aye.
Aye. Joanne? Aye. Charlie? Aye, doesn't matter. Aye. And Tony, you can't speak, I mean vote, sorry.
Recuse myself for the record.
Yep. The next issue is an ordinance further amending the floodplain maps in the city of Revere. We had the public hearing last week. This has to be approved by tomorrow if it is approved. And we're here tonight to discuss the issues pertaining to the floodplain map. Now, any of the members would like to speak on this? Mr. Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. President. I spoke to a couple of residents also in regards to the new FEMA proposed floodplain. I was also at the Hill School when FEMA came down and did a lot of explanations. There were a few hundred residents that were able to come and talk to the insurance people and talk to the people from FEMA. Although, I'm not happy like many residents. We're not very happy, and I don't think anyone on the council is happy that a lot of new residents or new homes were added to the floodplain. But the biggest thing I got out of it is if we don't approve the new zoning, then we would literally be leaving the citizens of Revere out in the cold to be put into the current policies for flood insurance. And if they're able to get into that policy by the deadline, which I think is sometime this month, they'll get a more favorable rate. If we decide to not allow them to get on, if we don't vote for it, then they will be literally out in the cold and/or have to go for some sort of outside insurance that would probably cost them 2, 3, 4 times the amount. So although I'm not in favor of the new maps, I think that we quite possibly have to vote in favor of this new flood insurance plan. And then hopes that I would like to see us make a commitment to the citizens of Revere today that we're going to help talk to our legislatures so that we can go and have a look taken to see if these maps can be readjusted, as we've done in the past, because I know that this is a city that's highly affected. So I think that we're almost in a position where we have to, or we'll be leaving people without the ability to gain insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Keefe. Ward 1 Councilor, Ms. McKenna?
Thank you. As Councilor Keefe said, I'm really not in favor of this, but I feel like we have to vote for it. I know in my ward where it's very affected by flood, but I feel like our backs up are against the wall, and we have no choice but to vote for this. So, and I agree with Councilor Keefe that we should visit the legislature and see if we can come up with a new plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Zambuto?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think anybody's in favor of this flood map that's been drawn by federal bureaucrats that don't even know Revere from California. But as my new colleague from Ward 4 said, we got a gun to our head here. If we don't vote for this, we don't approve this, our citizens won't be able to buy flood insurance. It's as simple as that. So our best hope is to work in the future to amend this flood map in any way we can through our federal delegation and whoever else we can use to help us with that. But the way it stands right now, we vote this down, we leave people vulnerable to having no flood insurance. Yeah, they can keep their policy until it runs out, but they won't be able to get a new policy. And God forbid there's a flood, they're going to lose their homes with no coverage. So I can't do that to the citizens. So, like I said, with a gun to my head, I'm going to vote yes on this.
Thank you. Councilor Ganasso?
Mr. Chairman, thanks for the leadway. As I am not a voting member of the zoning subcommittee, I find it that I must speak on this particular issue. As been stated by many councilors and many people, you know, that without this insurance, that these homeowners won't be able to afford insurance, and they won't be able to get a new flood insurance policy. My concern is very clearly, I'm concerned about those citizens within our community now who can't afford this, who've lived their whole lives in their properties. They now become senior citizens, and now because they've, through the good faith of God, that they've lived to an elderly years, and they won't be able to afford this. A lot of people will be struck with, some will be, the bill will be between $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000 a year. Some of these people are probably just getting retirement of $4,000 a year. And to beg to differ is, 38 years ago, we had the infamous blizzard of '78. And that is the last storm that this state has ever uncovered, that we got any reimbursement for. And most people, what they got out of that was the ability to get an SBA loan, which is a low-interest loan. So in effect, they still had to pay for the upkeep of their property thereafter a major storm like the blizzard of '78. We now experienced a year or so ago a devastating tornado. Not 10 cents was retrieved from FEMA for that disaster to our community. Not 10 cents. We, Mr. Chairman, are paying for the unfortunate events that are occurring down in the southern part of our country. Katrina, as recently as this weekend, Louisiana, the major flooding there. Those plains are so low that they are susceptible to flooding. We have now put into place a new process within the City of Revere. And it's simply that when you build a new home near the beachfront, they make sure that you have a water flow go right through your property. So there will be no minimal or no damage whatsoever to your property. In the olden days when they were allowed to build, they didn't understand this or recognize this need. But we now have a Conservation Commission that watches over us. Now, if we refer to people like in Situate that live right on the brink of the ocean, well, that's part of the hardship of living on the brink of the ocean. Because out of the 365 days a year, maybe 4 will be disastrous, but the rest will be absolutely glorious. And they chose to live there. But I don't think most of our people, in some of the areas that they depicted for the flood zone area, on the maps that they were given, will never get flooded, ever. They will never, ever get flooded by a national disaster. So I just think, and you know, we don't have a gun to our head. We have logic to our head. Do we experience the living people who have worked hard for their property all these years that can't afford this? Or do we now say, well, we have to watch for the future because something might happen to a few households within our community that won't be able to afford to replace their property? I'm sure they will.
Thank you.
I'm sure there'll be something there. But I just feel very strongly for this, and I will be voting in the opposition to this. And I don't think we have a gun to our head. I think we have logic and pencils to our head to send the message to them that we don't accept it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although my heart goes with, along with Councilor Granasso, I feel that FEMA, who the working class today has treated very poorly the last several years, and unfortunately we have to abide by what they send down to us, and they really don't care about the tax-paying middle class of today. I wouldn't expect anything else coming out of Washington either, like the last several years. But so I'm going to vote for this because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the city will be punished more or less if we do have a disaster. We won't be able to put in for any funding from FEMA. As far as the taxpayers that are in the flood zone, they will get, if they have a mortgage, they're going to end up getting whatever the bank tells them they have to pay. So it really won't affect them. This is what I got out of the public hearing, and I might be wrong. But anyways, I don't want to take the chance of, if we happen to, unfortunately, get a disaster that hits the city, we're gonna need them, you know, and we're gonna have to go begging to them. At least we got that option open. If we don't vote for this tonight, we end up with nothing. So I will be voting for this tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. We also have with us tonight Jessica Giannino down there. Welcome, Jessica. John Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like my colleagues, I'm going to support this evening. And this is the first time ever voting for what I consider to be one of the biggest rip-offs in America by the federal government. I live at dead center in the flood zone down on Ponset Street. I've experienced 1.5 to 2 feet of water on my street. Oak Island, we've seen the same thing. I go back to the blizzard of '78. The city was devastated. People lost millions of dollars in property value, in property and personal belongings. To not vote for this would be to disengage all of our flood insurance. And if you have a mortgage on your house, the bank's going to go out and get the flood insurance somewhere, and you're going to pay for it. You're not going to get it through the national program. And you're going to wind up probably paying more. But I question, seriously, where our congressional delegation is on something like this. Why they're not up front supporting this city and the other cities that are in their district. They're in a flood zone. To me, this is the biggest ripoff in America. We're paying money to satisfy deficiencies in the National Flood Insurance Program. And that's 100% wrong. I've got people that live in my ward that make a week's pay. A couple of $1,000s a month. And then they get hit with this flood insurance. And it probably just takes one of their month's pay away from them. It's 100% wrong, and I challenge us congressional delegation to get on the ball and do something about this before the people in this city are devastated financially once again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Anyone else like to speak? No. This issue is major ramifications within the City of Revere. You know, my heart tells me I have to vote for it to protect the citizens of Revere because we're paying for Katrina, the major firestorms in the West Coast, you know, all of the major issues that have not confronted Massachusetts yet. And I believe that if we don't accept it, the bank's going to force the people that they have mortgages on to get it from private enterprises. And I consider it will be extremely more expensive. So I'd like to have a roll call of the members. You got it. To accept, right.
Roll call of the members of the zoning subcommittee to accept the report of the planning board
And this will take effect
On
on
the
the
flood
16th of March. The 16th of March.
when the mayor signs it.
Right.
Yes. Councillor O'Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Rotondo is absent. Councillor Zambudo? Yes. Yes, and Chairman Hass?
Yes.
Yes, the report has been accepted.
So that'll be going to the regular council meeting that follows this. I'd like to take a 5-minute recess, waiting for Councillor Rotondo to show up. He called, he's going to be a little late today, but we still have to 5 o'clock. Gentlemen, there's 2 issues we haven't addressed this evening, and I'm going to leave them in committee until the next time we meet. So this will adjourn this zoning commission meeting. Thank you.